welcome to Here's the Thing, one more program where we speak to very, very interesting people, and particularly today, a very interesting man. His name is Paul Godfrey, and unless you've been living on Mars, you certainly have heard this name in the city of Toronto. He's a man that has been part of the history of the city of Toronto for many years, serving in many capacities, so it would be an injustice for me to try and get through all the accolades, titles, and the things that he's brought to this city. Culturally, this city would have been much poorer if Mr. Godfrey hadn't been born in this place. We're going to speak a little bit about his life in the city and the things that he's accomplished. And hopefully the Lusophone community will get to know Mr. Godfrey a little bit better if you already don't know. Welcome to this program, Mr. Godfrey.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, as I was saying, you have been part of the fabric of this city for many years. You were born in Toronto, in Kensington Market area, I believe.
Yes, true.
And Kensington Market has a special place in the history of the Portuguese community since 1953. That's where most immigrants would come to establish and to find a route for themselves into Canada, and that's where the first business establishments opened up, and so our history goes back quite a bit. What is your best recollection about being born and living at Kensington Market?
Well, my grandmother lived on Oxford Street, and my parents lived on Oxford Street as well at the other end of the street. And so I got to know the Kensington Market, the shopping area. As a little boy, I remember going with my grandmother to have a kosher chicken koshered at the time, and I still have an opportunity when I go on long walks to walk from the Yorkville and Bay area down over to Spadina and College and through the area to reminisce with the place that I grew up. I went to Lansdowne Public School in that area.
So did I, so did I, yes.
So I know the area quite well. It was this Oxford Street at the time, right adjacent to the whole Kensington Market, was very interesting because in the middle of the block there was C.A. Ward, the mover, there. So you had a moving company right in the middle of the block. And then it was on the other side of the street, there was a grocery store right in the middle. That you don't see that in residential areas today. And to really top it all off, right next to the Kensington marketplace, there was a blacksmith that we would often see horses being shoed there. So it was a different community in those days than it is today. Yes. And the Jewish community, which I was born into, I was born at Western Hospital nearby, and so it means a lot to me. And I've taken my children and even some of my grandchildren now through the area to prove that this was where I grew up. I'm very proud of the Kensington community.
Yes, I have very similar memories, and that's where I first established myself when I came to this country in 1970. Kensington Market was the place where we would go, from Tivoli billiards to Harry, the man who supplied all our hard hats and safety boots and
right.
All of these places. So very, very good memories. Very good memories for me. Being a lifelong resident of Toronto, you've of course seen this city change considerably. What impresses you and disappoints you the most about this city today?
Well, I think Toronto globally has become one of the great cities of the world. In spite of an increase in crime, it's still considered one of the safest cities. A city that is really open to great tourism. We have great sports activities, great show business activities. We're the center of finance for Canada right here in Toronto. So those are the positive things. I am disappointed in a number of things that I see today. I see a war against the automobile, streets being narrowed. Look, I'm all for bike lanes in the city, but I think there's certain streets that shouldn't have them. And sometimes the bike lanes are made very wide and cuts off a lane of traffic. And when you drive it through the streets on a busy day, even during a pandemic, you can just imagine how sad it's going to be afterwards. You know, we got to keep. We're building a lot of public transit, which I think is a good thing, It's still a great city overall. We're developing the waterfront the way the waterfront should be developed, making it a place for people to visit, and it will be a major attraction. So, you know what? There is no city that's perfect, whether it's the great city of New York or London or any of the other great cities of the world. But hopefully our elected officials will provide a balance between the things that they have to do and the things that they must do.
In your time in government as alderman for the City of Toronto and then chairman of Metro Toronto, did you ever envision the development of this city as it is? And did you, at the time when you were in government, put certain plans and decisions in place that have affected the way this city has developed over the years?
Well, I hope I made a contribution. The city has grown tremendously. I think that there are a lot of great things that the city have done. The downtown is a very vibrant part of the overall Greater Toronto area. There's a lot of cities in America which the downtown area has been abandoned. We don't have that. We were able to redevelop a lot of the things. I'm speaking to you from the condo that I live in above the Four Seasons Hotel. And as I look out the window, I see many high-rise buildings for residential purposes. I see high rises for office purposes. A lot of them unfortunately closed during the pandemic. And it's very vibrant, very alive. There's entertainment, there's great restaurants. There's various communities. We're sort of a melting pot for many people of the Portuguese, the Italians, the Greek community. So you get a taste of the world in the general downtown area. And I think that's one of the great aspects of people of all faiths, religions, can live side by side in peace and all take pride in promoting the part of the city that they live in.
As I said at the start of our interview, Paul Godfrey essentially personalizes this city and has been part of the fabric for many years. You've received many accolades. You've done a lot for this city. But one of the most important for you must have been receiving the Member of the Order of Canada. How much this recognition brings, in my mind, two things. Brings one of responsibility and one of having to live a life in the future in accordance with certain guidelines and certain responsibilities that come along with it. What has it meant for you?
Well, first of all, I was greatly surprised in 1999, I believe it was, getting a letter from the Governor General of Canada. I figured, why would the Governor General be reaching out to me? And when I opened it up, somebody had nominated me to become a member of the Order of Canada, and that was a great success. I proudly wear the little flower with the Order of Canada each and every day. I guess I received it for being in public life for a number of years. There are a lot of things that were important to me during my years in public life. As a lot of people know that I'm a sports bug, and I realized that Montreal had a Major League Baseball team, and we had a just a hockey team, and baseball didn't exist. And it was my goal to try and encourage business to put some money in, so see if we could have a baseball team. And I guess I was in the right spot at the right time. Not doing it all by myself. I get probably more credit for it than I deserve. At the time, the 𝗬𝗏𝗶𝗶𝗀 Brewery, a man by the name of 𝗬𝗏𝗶𝗏𝗀, who owned the Globe and Mail at the time, and the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, got together and helped my campaign, along with a lot of other people who equally deserve credit. But I guess that's one of the things that made me very proud. I also felt that when I got a great opportunity to be hopefully a city builder and considered a city builder, I recognized that that doesn't happen very often. And when given the opportunity, I also felt that I had to put things back into the community. And my wife and I have constantly, while our sons were growing up, we have 3 sons, that to teach them the importance of putting back in the community, because the community we live in is a great one, and it's also very important for me, and to teach our sons to give back. And we were very much involved in the hospital for sick children, with the starting of the 𝗬𝗶𝗶𝗀 Fund, which brought children from all over the world who have life-threatening problems that only could be done at a hospital like sick kids. So now I can see my sons and their families also contributing in many ways to the community in a charitable way. So given that opportunity, I think it's really important to put back things when you've benefited so much from the community you live in.
Yeah. Well, Paul Godfrey is not born very often. You know, I call people like yourself a builder, a man in a way who's a bit of a disturber. He wants to change, and in order to change, you gotta take risks and disturb the establishment a little bit too. And I think you've done that. But you know, you're already of a certain age, and you know, a little bit over 65, like myself, and you continue to embrace projects at a pace that it's hard to believe. Where do you get the drive to continue at this pace and to get involved in new things?
Well, I strongly believe that retirement is all dependent on a number of things. Fortunately, I don't have to work anymore if I didn't want to work.
Right.
But I find that as long as I have my good health, I'm willing to take on new responsibilities and new ventures. And I think that that keeps your brain working. I think you gotta know how, as you get older, you see a lot of people, they age quickly from inactivity, both physically and mentally. And I decided as I approached the age of mid-50s that I was going to work until I couldn't work any longer, no matter what it is. I was going to mix the opportunity of continuing to do things for Toronto, Ontario, and Canada, but at the same time, do something that's creative and challenging. So I try to follow that, and although I'm no longer the CEO of Postmedia, I'm still a chairman of the board. With that, I sit on a number of boards, and it's exciting for me every day when I wake up and I say, oh my God, I have so many things to do, and the days just fly by, and they're all very exciting. Even during the pandemic, with doing things virtually now, you can accomplish it. In fact, you can, I think that what's going to happen, even after the pandemic, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to travel less business-wise, because instead of flying to New York or Chicago or LA for a one-day meeting, they're going to do it virtually and save all the travel time. The airlines may be unhappy about that, but I think it's going to be a fact of life.
Yeah. Your involvement is in sports and media is legendary in the city. You know, bring the Blue Jays to Toronto. being their president and CEO for 8 years. It was a huge accomplishment. How important did you feel that Toronto becoming a major league city in sports, including the fact that you're still interested in bringing the NFL to Toronto? How important do you think it is for a city or a country to have teams of a certain caliber coming, and what does it bring along with it?
Well, first of all, I think great cities of the world have to be socially complete, culturally complete, athletically complete. And sports is one very big component. And I think all you have to do is look back a couple of years when the Raptors won the NBA championship and how millions of people flooded the streets of Toronto to welcome the team back. In fact, it was amazing that people came from all over Canada. The Raptors were their team. Toronto was the only team in the National Baseball Association. Right now, unfortunately, Toronto is the only team in Major League Baseball. Montreal had a team. Unfortunately, it moved to another city, to Washington. And I believe that someday Montreal should get its team back and create a sort of a natural, friendly rivalry between Toronto and Montreal. It's kind of odd that it was the presence of the Expos in Montreal that really shone the light on Toronto. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and convinced them that Toronto could equally be a good major league city. And it was with the help of a lot of people that happened. But I also think that Toronto would be a great city to be the first city in Canada to have a National Football League team. There's no doubt that the Toronto sees itself as a major league city. The NBA is the best basketball league in the world. The Major League Baseball is the best baseball league in the world. We already have hockey, which is part of our frame, and hopefully this year we may even see a Stanley Cup win in the city, which we haven't had one since 1967, well over 50 years. So
that's a long time.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But I think that there's great interest in football. I think that Toronto would be a great city. And I honestly believe that if a National Football League team came to Toronto, which I am still knocking on the door, and I've even told Commissioner Roger Goodell, I said to him, I'm 82 years old. I'm not going to last forever. And my dreams need filling in the football area.
So make it happen.
Bucket list, I told him I only have a couple of things on my bucket list. He started to laugh. He says to me, I know. And he says, you keep reminding me of that. So I'm still working on that. And that will finish the sports chapter for Toronto.
Then don't stop. One of the things that I do in this community with my team is we publish a newspaper. We have some TV station and radio and so on. It's becoming more and more difficult, even in ethnic media, to keep these projects financially viable. But I believe that the ethnic media plays an important role right now in the fabric of the city and in this country. Given the status of media today, where more and more large corporations are divesting themselves of assets, laying off people, changing their way of doing things more to streaming and the internet, where do you see the media communication going in the near future?
Well, that's a very, very good question. And let me start off by saying the ethnic community plays a very, very important role in getting information and factual information out to residents. Not everybody makes English their first language in the city, and it's important that facts and figures of accuracy get played out. the world has changed. The internet has changed everything. And there's no doubt that back when I joined the Toronto Sun back in 1984, when I left City Hall, that to be a press baron, as they called them in those days, you were, first of all, I got to tell you that I really believe that almost anyone could have been a publisher of a newspaper. The phones kept ringing, advertising was there, as you're aware. The media live off advertising, whether on the radio, whether it's on television, whether it's in print, whether it's in magazines. And it was easy to make a lot of money. And God, I remember reporting at my first board meeting that here I'd been at the company, the Toronto Sun. Doug Creighton hired me after went into the first board meeting after 3 months. I broke every record. And I felt kind of proud of myself. I shouldn't have felt proud of myself because it was happening everywhere. So I was sort of...
You're being very humble.
Telling the board all these great numbers that we had. And one of the directors stood up and he banged the desk and he says, I told you, and I told you, and he went around. He says, this company is so good, even Godfrey can't screw it up. So it was, the fact is, it was true. Yeah. But what's happened since? The internet came along, really about 2007. I had already left the newspaper business. I went to run the Toronto Blue Jays at the time, thanks to Ted Rogers. I became chairman of the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, mainly because of Dalton McGuinty and Dwight Duncan. It was kind of odd that they reached out to a conservative to run the OLG for
that's unusual.
So, which was I was pretty proud of. But when I went back to run Post Media, which owned in Toronto the National Post and the Toronto Sun, something had changed. Everybody tried to blame it on the recession that we had, but I had a feeling that this was more than there was a structural change in there. People were beginning to go online. People were beginning to see the news on the internet. And between Google and Facebook at that time, they began to dominate. They began to reach out over the world. And we watched classified advertising almost disappear with a number of new sites, the apps for Google and Facebook. And it really hasn't stopped since. And a lot of newspapers have closed their doors, not just in Toronto or in Canada, but worldwide. And you can see for the first time the media asking governments, whether it be television or radio, they're all suffering today because you really have two very dominant forces. Actually, maybe when you start putting in Amazon and Netflix and Apple, you have a number of dominant people that have taken all the advertising away. And just to give you an example, when I took over Post Media from the CanWest organization in 2010, we had 5,400 employees. By 2015, we were down to 2,800 employees when we reacquired the Toronto Sun. We went up to over 5,000 again. And today, we're down to about 1,800 employees.
That's
loss
incredible.
of a lot of jobs,
Yes.
loss of a lot of revenue. And you know what, if there isn't, you know what, Google and Facebook pay almost no taxes at all. They employ very few people. And that's why countries like France and Australia have moved in. The European Union have been very tough on Google and fined them for almost being a monopoly. So we're hopeful that things will change. The government of Canada, after a long hesitation, has decided that they will try and help newspapers in other media. And if they don't, we're going to lose the whole aspect of Canadian media. And because TV has been hurt, radio has been hurt, and newspapers will be forced to probably seek some sort of coming together and uniting in some way.
Our newspaper, as I said, Millennium Stadium, is covering this week the effects on gambling during this pandemic and that it's having on communities. We, as the former chairman of 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀, you've of course have had experience, in the government programs of selling tickets to citizens and so on. What impact do you think overall? Do you think that the Ontario government and each and every day there's more and more games, more and more ticket sales, more and more internet gambling and so on? Do you think this is a positive for the population, that it keeps them having hope that somehow they can get lucky and hit the jackpot? Or is this a detrimental thing that society has accepted, and that most people that gamble and then buy tickets and so on can't really afford it? Where do you think the biggest problem in society is as far as gambling and gaming?
Well, I really didn't know a lot about gaming. I remember when I was a young boy, my mother would buy a sweepstake ticket, the Irish sweepstake, and she'd save up her pennies and I think bought a ticket for $5, but never won. So there is a danger where people can get caught up in the gambling cycle and lose more than they can afford to lose. However, having said that, the internet again played a lot of roles. If there was no gaming at all, for instance, in Ontario, people could still gamble if they wanted to gamble. All they have to do is go on site, online rather, and bet on whether it's blackjack that they take place in a casino, or bet on the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Stanley Cup. That's all illegal. And what happens is the governments get no amount of money for that.
Yeah.
So I can tell you right now that your tax bill as an Ontarian would be dramatically higher if there was no Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. To give you, when I was the chairman of the 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀 from 2010 to 2015, the revenues from the 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀 to Ontario for not only the lotteries that people bought tickets, but the various gaming that they had throughout Ontario was $7 billion. And that's now back to 2014 and 15. I was there for actually I left in 15. And the fact is that the government made a lot of money from that. Some people probably played too much, but part of the 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗀's mandate was to discourage people and prevent people at times from being able to enter into a casino. If they asked to be barred, there was a system by video photographing to keep them out. At the same time, it created a lot of jobs. The government, to show you how much, they collected $7 billion, and I think in 2013 to 15, in that each year. Major League Baseball, who's got 30 teams and has revenue coming in from advertising in their stadiums, ticket sales going to the teams, their whole generation was slightly less than $7 billion. For 30 teams on everything that Major League Baseball. So it was very big. But betting on sports, the leagues were always against it. I remember that Bud Selig, the commissioner of baseball, wrote letters to all the sport leagues. I don't want any betting. But something happened about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that the commissioner of the NBA said he would be in favor of betting on games with the right guidelines in place, that the teams, the league would get some, the government would get some. And that's what you're seeing now. Gambling is becoming more open. Again, why? Because it's going to go underground. People have been betting on sports games through bookies for years, for many, many years. So I think that's now being recognized, and that's why there's going to be a lot of activity in sports betting, especially in the next few years. The government of Canada has got a bill in front of the Senate now, which has to be approved and likely will be approved for sports betting, with regulations on that to make sure that organized crime doesn't come in and things like that. So I've just gone on a board called Bragg Gaming, which is going to be in sports betting and internet gaming. Again, I'm sure governments are going to take a piece of that, as they probably should.
As it probably should. Well, you know, we could speak for hours on end here because I have a lot of questions for you. But you know, I really want to thank you for taking this time to speak with us and give us your insight. You know, hopefully we'll see an NFL team here soon with Paul Godfrey's name on it. I hope to meet you in person again very soon. So I want to thank you today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity of being on, and keep up your good work and get that information out to the people in the Portuguese community.
Thank you so much, Mr.
My honor to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Godfrey. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.